Okay. Mega basic object tutorial because sometimes objects seem mega complicated and they don't have to be. So, okay. First things first, you need a place to play with your object. So I'm going to make a void setup. What does the void mean?
Doesn't return anything.
Good. It doesn't return anything. The setup method doesn't take anything. And all I'm going to do in there is set a reasonable sized window, just per use. Cool. I'm going to set a background to white. Oops. To white. And that's all I'm putting in my setup method. I'm going to make a draw method. Why am I making a draw method?
To draw it.
Yeah, because you're going to want to draw something, and you already have a setup method, so you definitely need the draw method. Everybody good with this? Okay. That's going to be my object, or my kind of main tab. So when I'm writing processing code, because the compiler is super chill, because my compiler is super chill, it lets me have these tabs, and I'm going to exploit that to my advantage. So every time I write processing code, I'm going to have like a main sketch. Oh, whoops. And then I'm going to make a new tab that I'm going to call main because I just did this dumb thing. Okay, new tab. I'm going to make a tab for my object. Cool. So this keeps my code organized. If I have little methods that I really like that circle drawing method, or like a modulo method, or a cubing method, or a squaring method, or some like math BS stuff that I've made up, I'm going to have another tab that has like methods that I use that aren't part of the draw or setup method. You guys cool with that? That's just so I can find stuff. Okay. So, objects have three things. They have this part, now they have four things because I said this was part of it. So, I'm going to make a class that I'm going to call example. So, what this thing does is this says the object that you're dealing with is called example. Oh, you know what? I'm going to call this rock, because I suspect lots of you are making rocks to dodge or something. Yeah, you could call it car, you could call it, yeah. Like, there's lots of good things to call this. In here, what you want is some variables. Then you need a constructor and some methods. So this is the way every single object that you're going to ever build is going to go. It's going to have some stuff. It's going to have a way to make a new one and some stuff that this thing can do. So just to keep things simple, my rocks are going to have only a float, a float X, and a float Y. Like, that's all my rocks are going to have. You guys cool with that? If you wanted to make your rocks move around, you would want some velocities in here, or speeds. If you wanted to make your rocks of variable sizes, you would want some kind of radius thing in here. If you wanted to make them different colors, you would want some kind of color variable in here, right? But this is just all the list of properties that a rock has. If you want them to be different from rock to rock, like if you want to have 20 rocks, and you want them all to be able to have different positions, the positions need to be in here. You guys see that? If you want them all to have different radii, the radii need to be in here. This is going to be anything you would find yourself copy and pasting. Right? Under the constructor, you need the same word that you called the class. So I called the class rock. So here I need rock. Then empty parens, then braces. And the constructor is the way you make a new rock. You guys all with that? And so the way I'm going to make a new rock right now is I'm going to set x equal to 100 and y equal to 75. This is a dumb way to make a rock. Why is this dumb?
You have to do that for every single one.
Yeah, all of them are going to be in the same spot, right? Because every rock goes to this spot. You see that? You probably want to roll a little random in here. I'm not going to just for now, but I think that would be a good update to this. And then under methods, there are lots of methods you might have, right? If your rock's going to explode, you might want to put an explode method in here. If your rock's going to jump up and down, you want a jump up and down method. If your rock's going to do anything else, like change colors, you might want a change color method in here. But for right now, I'm going to put in the two methods that I put into basically every object I make in processing. What are the two methods I want to do with every single object?
Display.
Yeah. I want to be able to see the silly thing, so I'm going to make a display method. And I'm always going to call that method display, because I'm mega lazy. What's the other method, Arabelle? What else do you want the rocks to be able to do? Yeah, you probably want to be able to move them around. So I'm going to make a move method. Why is it shouting at me?
Because it needs to be void.
Yeah, because I need a return type, and I don't really want the move method to return anything. I just want it to do something. You guys all good? So, in my display method, how do I display a rock? Sure. One way would be to just put it somewhere. So do x, comma, y, comma, 20, comma, 20. And you probably want to make the fill. What's a good color for a rock?
Hot pink.
Hot pink. Thank you. Let's see. So how do I get it hot pink?
Doesn't work.
Dang it.
That would be so cool.
That would be really neat. I'm going to make it gray because I'm not going to look up hot pink right now. Okay. I'm not going to call the move method right now. I'm just going to leave that blank. I'm just going to go in here. How do I make it do anything with that rock?
You have to call the method, so rock.display.
Okay. Rock.display. And then parentheses and a semicolon.
Capital Rock.
Capital Rock. Cannot make a static reference to the non-static method display from the type main rock. What?
Let's go back to object type.
You need to actually make one of these, guys. So this right here is a cookie cutter. This is how a rock is and what it can do. You haven't actually made a rock yet. So the way you make a rock is up here in your... What section would this be?
The variable initializer.
Yeah, that's kind of the variable initializers, right? That's my globals. So up there, I want to make a rock, capital R-O-C-K, right? So that's telling it what kind of variable it is. And then I want to give it a name. So I'm going to call my rock Rocky. Okay, so that's declaring a variable Rocky that's of the type rock, right?
And it's not complaining because it already has the class rock.
Yep, and it's not complaining because over here is the class rock. If I named this rock with 2 Ks, it's going to whine about this because that's not a class that it has. It doesn't know how rocks with double Ks work because they're not a thing. But rocks with a CK are a thing, so it knows how to do that. It's still not going to like this rocky.display thing. Yeah, I really need to make an initializer here. And I like to initialize my objects in the setup method at the end. That lets me get at the width and height variables if I'm using those. If you find that your objects are starting out in weird spots, it's probably because you're rolling them up before the width and the height are available. So what's this line doing? Rocky is new rock.
It's a new class rock called Rocky.
Yeah, so that's a new object Rocky that's a member of the rock constructor class, right? So that's me calling the rock constructor to make a new rock.
I have a question. Can't you just make a new rock up?
Yeah,
It says rock.
you definitely can do this instead. So
Would there be any difference?
yes, not in this piece of code. So you can certainly do this, right? Where you declare and then initialize. The issue is if in here, let me put it in. So hang on. First, let's just check that this works. Okay, so there's my rock right there. Why isn't it moving?
Because you didn't tell it to move.
Yeah, for one thing, I didn't tell it how to move, and for another thing, I didn't tell it to. Right? I never called the move method, and even if I did call the move method, I never defined anything in there, so it ain't gonna do anything. You guys all see that? Okay. So if, in order to highlight this thing, I'm gonna put a width over 2 in here. Oh god. Width over 2. Now, where do I expect this rock to appear?
Middle screen.
Halfway across the screen and then 75 units down. Cool. Halfway across the screen, 75 units down, right? If I go change my... So I'm going to take my initializer line, comment it out, and take the equals new rock part and put it up here. So I'm going to declare and initialize instead of declare and then later initialize.
It's using width before it has the move width.
Yeah, it's using width before you set the size command, right? So before you set the size, the width was 100. So does it make a difference? Depends, sometimes. I prefer to keep them all down here so that I don't accidentally run into this problem. If you know what that problem is and you know the symptoms of that, then you can get away with picking and choosing. But it's easier probably if you just put all your object initializers at the end of this setup.
So, you're using the ellipse, right, for the rock?
I did.
Okay, so let's say in your main tab, you want, for some reason, you have a couple of ellipses that use radius, but you want it to be corners in your object tab.
Yep.
Could you actually set separate modes?
Yeah, I would advise, so if you wanted this one to be a radius mode,
Oh, so you're going to display module.
I'd probably put that right before. So I'd do ellipse mode, radius, oops, capitals here. And then if you're being really conscientious, you'll turn it off at the end. Right?
But wouldn't it override with what we have in the main temporarily? Like, can't there only be one mode?
Yeah, there can be only one mode engaged at a time. So probably what I would do is, oops, ellipse mode. Dang it. Mode.
Yeah.
Probably what I would do is this. So if you wanted ellipses drawn out here in corner mode and then in here in radius mode or whatever, right? I'd set whatever mode and then set it back. You can do this with a stack too, but I haven't taught you guys how to use stacks. This is the idea of a stack though, right? You're going to change it and then you'll change it back later. Any questions, deals? Okay. If you want it to move, how do you make it move?
All of the maths.
Like, here's the simplest way to make it move, right? You just do y plus plus. What's it going to do now?
Move down by 60 pixels.
Yeah, it's going to move down at 60 pixels a second, so it's going to go nowhere.
Oh, no, it's
You
not.
didn't call them move.
Yeah.
Yeah, why isn't it moving? Because I never told it to move, right? So if I want to do Rocky.display, how do I make Rocky move? Rocky.move.
I have a question.
So now it should move. Why is it doing the streaky thing?
You didn't do the
Background isn't.
Yeah, you told it to, right? You didn't put a background in here to wipe the screen. What's up, Chris?
Let's say you wanted Rocky to move when it hits the bottom of the screen. How
Yep.
would you pull Rocky's Y position out of the method?
Okay, so one thing I can do is if I want to know where Rocky is because I'm having issues, right, like debugging wise, if I want to know where Rocky is, I can print line out Rocky.y. So the thing's name dot method will let you do that thing. Rocky dot one of his properties is going to give you that property, right? So this is going to print out the Y values in the console. So I'll see that he starts at 75 and then he's going down by ones. If I stop this, I'll see that those are actually ones.
Hey, that's funny. It's returning a float. Didn't you set it to integers?
Yeah, and it's returning a float, and I think I set them to floats.
Oh,
Fint? Not what I want. Right, and of course you could set this to integers, and it probably still does exactly the same thing, but it prints out integers instead of floats. Cool? Yeah, so this is poor man's gravity,
So if
for the record. Poor man's gravity is just in the move, you increment the Y value, right? That makes things go down. If you want to make gravity go, or like creek-wise motion, how do you do side to side?
X plus plus.
Yeah, instead of incrementing Y, you increment X. If you want, really the right way to do this, guys, is to do Y equals Y plus Y speed, which will let you do three-dimensional motion a little bit easier. Sorry, two-dimensional motion. It will definitely let you do three-dimensional motion easier, but you have to have that Y speed variable declared. Where does that Y speed variable exist? Where is that supposed to exist?
in the class.
Yeah, that should probably be in the class. It could be a global, but if you want it to be different for each rock, then you need it in here. And here I declared it. Where should it be initialized?
Constructor.
Yeah, you should initialize it in the constructor. So that'd be here. So that'd be Y speed equals 1. And then we should get, cool, same thing. Did I expect anything different?
You can
Nah.
also do Y speed plus plus and then Y equals Y speed. Y plus Y speed.
Oh, yeah, and if you want to make things move faster and faster, right, you do this.
Capital S.
And this simulates gravity better.
It's actually really useful. to
Because
have
it's
that.
accelerating, right? It's not just going down always at the same speed, it's actually accelerating down. You guys see that? So if you want to do a gravity sim or a bouncer or a castle combat game, you're gonna want
Look at the Y value.
this style of movement.
No one has a screen that big, by the way.
Yeah, that one's too much. Cool. Questions on classes still, or objects still?
Can you use the dot properties in your main tab to evaluate if and for loops?
Yes, these are just variables. They're just stored in the object Rocky.
Change it to
It should be noted. Should be noted if you're playing with these out here in the draw method very much, you're probably doing something wrong. You should probably be making a method for whatever you're doing. You guys see that? If you're doing a good job with object-oriented code, this draw method usually has only object calls in it, right? And very little else. Cool?
So you could use like if rocky.y is greater than the height, then
yeah, so
equals 0.
if you want to make Rocky bounce around or wrap on the screen, the best spot to do that is in the move method of Rocky.
But
Right, so that
you could do it the other way.
you can definitely do that out here, but it is nasty to read. It's much easier to just put it in the move method. So,
From within an object's class, like say I wanted to make a Rocky dot collision method.
okay.
Can I reference other objects that haven't been created or anything? For example, if I had a ship object and a Rocky object, and I wanted to do collision between the two of them, would I have to do that in my main, or would it be better coding practice to do it within the Rocky object or the ship object?
Okay, so usually what I'll do if I want a collision is I'll make a void collide method in one or the other object. So in this case, this is going to be if rocks hit each other, right? So I do a void collide, and I'm going to pass to this a rock that I'm going to call other. And then it's going to tell me that it's not used. And then I'm going to do something like if the distance between other.x, other.y, and x and y, right? Because I'm in the rock class, right? So this is going to take 2 rocks to work. And then I might do something like make a text output or change the score or something. Do you guys want to see an implementation of this? I have one right here.
And equals something.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So is... No, yeah, sure, that would be a harsh collision, right? Because they'd have to get exactly on top of each other.
Less than or equal to 0.
Yeah, so you might do like if this is less than 20 or something. Like if they get close enough, right? You'd really want the sum of the radii here. Let me show you an implementation of this.
Collisions.
Where did my little sketch go? Sketch. Jumper game.
Yay.
Okay, so I made a little jumper game with jumpers and dodgers. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of garbage in here, but this is the important part. This is a for loop through all the dodgers, and it just checks, did you collide with the jumper? Right, so it's looping through all the dodgers and it's asking, did you collide with the jumper? And then the way that collide method works is I've just collide with a jumper that I'm calling the player, and I'm saying if the distance between the player and the jumper that or the dodger that I'm talking about is smaller than 40, then we set the hit boolean to true and we increment your score. That should feel backwards, right? You should really decrement your score, but I'm not counting this as positive. I'm counting demerits. So you can see that my little ball tries to fall, and when I'm clicking the mouse, he rises back up. And every time I get near one of the little green things, it turns blue. Okay, stop. Okay. So if you want to stop the if you want to stop the constant falling, oops, that's backwards. That's not going to help. So if you want to stop the constant falling, you need to set gravity to smaller. So my gravity variable's somewhere. Okay, so now we'll just fall way slower. And jump way too high.
It's called jumper, man.
But the important thing about this was the collisions, right?
Right.
You guys see how the collisions work? So I'm calling on each little rock. I'm checking to see if it collided with the jumper. So I put that as a method in the dodgers. So the dodgers have a move, and they wrap, and they have a display, and their display includes a color thing, right? Like if they're hit, they're green, or if they're not hit, they're green, and if they are hit, they turn blue. And then they only really have a few variables, right? They've got an X and a Y, and the Y speed actually isn't even used here. Right, so view as 0, and it's always set to 0.
So I get why you did it on the Dodgers, but maybe you should explain why you did it on the Dodgers instead of on the jumper.
Yeah, so that's a reasonable thing. Here, what I'm checking is, was the Dodger hit by a jumper? Because that's what I want to change the display of. You guys see that? Like, I wanted to make the rocks, my Dodgers, change color if they got hit by the jumper. If you wanted to make the jumper change color, then you would probably put the collide method in the jumper and take Dodgers as inputs instead of the other way. Cool?
If you put it in the jumper, you'd have to loop through.
Yeah, and if you put it in the jumper, you have to loop through all the Dodgers to check. I had to loop through all the Dodgers anyway, right? But I was already looping through the Dodgers to move and display them. And actually, I did this very dumb thing here. You guys see what's dumb about this?
No.
I'm checking display before I check collide. And I'm moving it before I check collide. So this is actually going to anticipate a hit a little bit. So you probably want to put the collide first, so it checks whether it's colliding, and then it draws it, and then it moves it for the next frame. And then there's also one more dumb thing. I don't know if you guys can see it from here.
Didn't debounce.
But yeah, I didn't debounce on purpose, actually. But you can see they turned blue a little bit early.
That's because your radius is too big.
Yeah, I set it to
40.
Yeah, I hard-coded it to 40, and really it should be 20, because each thing is 20 wide. So they're 20 wide, which means they have a radius of 10, which means that if they're hitting, they have to be closer than 20 apart. I just screwed it up because I thought I was in ellipse mode radius instead of ellipse mode center. All right.